I just think we need a bit of a reality check regarding the relationship between Pennsylvania, the Northeast, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. So, this is the Northeast, or at least it's a part of it. You see how Philadelphia is not that far from New York? Kind of on the border of New Jersey there. In fact, a lot of Philadelphia is in New Jersey. Kind of on the way between New York and Washington there. That's Pennsylvania. Philadelphia. If you win Philadelphia, you win Pennsylvania. Of course, it helps if you do well in Pittsburgh, which is the other major city in Pennsylvania. Now, it's not going to be very often that that Pittsburgh and Philadelphia vote differently. And it's not going to be very often that they vote Republican either. This idea that Pennsylvania is a swing state because it has Republican districts, like, okay, over here, like, that's fine, but you've got to win the whole state. It's just how the electoral college works. I did it right. And that means you got to win Philadelphia, which is pretty much northeast. Just about as northeast as northeast gets, right? And, if Philadelphia somehow splits, you at least got to win Pittsburgh. Now, what does Pennsylvania have to do with Ohio then? Well, there might be some overlap there in the Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Youngstown, or at least maybe there was some overlap there, 50 years ago when that was a steel town. Cleveland was a steel town. Pittsburgh was a steel town that was like an industrial area. But I mean, like, forget about NAFTA. That started falling apart in the fucking 70s. Right? Like, that doesn't exist anymore. Cleveland's like a backwater nowadays. And Pittsburgh has done well in reinventing itself, but not as a union town. It's as an academic center. Right? I guess it's all the Carnegie money, all the Mellon money. Like, it's Pittsburgh nowadays is an academic center. It's healthcare. It's not. These aren't white working class people anymore. In fact, they're pretty upper middle class. Cleveland, on the other hand, has collapsed, to my knowledge. In fact, that's a good case study in the difference between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. The population centers in Ohio have shifted to the south, to Columbus and Cincinnati, Dayton. That's where, that's Ohio nowadays. Cleveland is falling apart. It's down here that is where you get more population growth and where you're getting more wealth. And where, you're going to determine whether the state gets carried or not. And from a cultural perspective, that area has more in common with Louisville and Indianapolis. Right? And so I think we're looking at, three very different cultural regions. And I don't see why anybody would think the data in Ohio would have anything to do with data in Pennsylvania. I don't think it makes sense at all to connect data in Pennsylvania and Ohio together. I do think it makes a lot of sense to connect data in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee together. There's a gradient, no doubt, somewhere in between those red circles. But the idea that Ohio and Pennsylvania are both white Union steel states or something, that's like 20, 30, 40 years out of date. Again, I think that one should expect Ohio to be red. Ohio is a Republican state, guys. Okay? Let's get with it. And if it's closer than expected, then that should suggest Kentucky and Indiana are closer than expected too. So you would expect Ohio to be red in most years. If it seems like it's trending blue, then, like, if there's a big difference between, you expect a big difference between Ohio and Pennsylvania. If that difference is closer than you would predict, then that wouldn't suggest Pennsylvania is tenuous, so much as it might suggest that Clinton is doing better than might have been forecast in Indiana and Kentucky. Right? So I'm reading this data the other way around. And I'm reading it the other way around by connecting Ohio to its south rather than to its east, which I think is correct. I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't think it was correct, right? The idea that we should expect Ohio to be blue and then conclude Pennsylvania is tentative if it's closer than expected is I do not believe that that's a correct understanding of the region. I believe that that is out of date thinking. And it's the kind of thing you got to keep up on if you're going to be doing models like this, right? And I think we're going to see this come out soon enough. That all the models are exaggerating Trump's support in this region by overstating his support amongst white people. The recent ABC did I say people there? I meant poll. The recent ABC poll had Trump winning whites by a mere 4% and losing men. And people are going to look at that and say that's ridiculous. I actually think that's probably right. And remember what happened to Kentucky in the primaries? I'll tell you what happened to Kentucky in the primaries. Everybody thought that Sanders would win because it was white. Kentucky is mostly white, so Sanders should win in a landslide. In fact, Clinton won by a hair. I am not predicting that Clinton is going to win Kentucky. I am not even predicting that Clinton is going to win Indiana. In fact, I am not even predicting that Clinton is going to win Ohio. But I do believe that that is where the missing data is. That these states are going to be a little closer than anyone expected. We might not be there yet, but I don't think it's... I think that we will see a time in the near future where Indiana is more blue than Ohio. It's just the way that these states are trending, right? All the population movement's down here. And if Chicago keeps growing. But, like I say, I think the main point here is that if you look at Ohio, and Ohio is trending more blue rather than the expected red, then that doesn't say, I don't think that says anything about Pennsylvania, but I think it says a lot about Indiana, and maybe a little less about Kentucky.